I am ecstatic about what Habs GM Kent Hughes just said, as in a recent interview with Eric Engels posted on Sportsnet, the Habs general manager dove into the trade situation right now, specifically about Carey Price, but also about his master plan to keep cap flexibility for this team moving forward. We have to dive into the awesome things he said, not only on that, but also about the development of this young team. But there's also some great news out of the Habs practice facility today, as we saw a face-off class with some very interesting names taking part, including, you see one, Juraj Slafkovsky on the left, and another new addition in that group. All of that plus much more coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. But before we get into that much more, because that's really interesting too, Team Canada implications, we got to announce we are doing a giveaway. Now, you might have seen the community post or the Twitter post, but we're giving away 2 tickets to the Habs Prospect Showdown on Saturday, September 13th versus the Winnipeg Jets. To enter, it's super simple. Make sure you're subscribed. We can check that. Like this video and comment with the word giveaway. Anywhere in the comment, if you put the word giveaway, you will be entered, and anyone who comments between now and Sunday will be entered. One person will randomly win 2 tickets. We are so excited about this. So leave your comments, subscribe to the channel. We're so hyped about it. Oh, love doing giveaways, Jesse. And you know what else I love? You know what else I love? Team Canada love Jon Cooper. He had this to say in the same article from Eric Engels talking about Nick Suzuki. The one thing I didn't know about him was personality. He made a point to spend some time with him. Knew he was quiet, but he was very engaging when you sit with him one-on-one. Had a great time. That's just another box checked in the cosmic trajectory. Jesse, this is one of the best quotes you could ever hear from one of the best coaches in the league, a guy who has a lot of influence. How are you feeling after reading what Jon Cooper had to say about our boy Nick Suzuki?
2 really smart guys getting along. For me, I'm really excited to see this year. But the praises for Nick Suzuki is coming from around the league, whether it's Kent Hughes, but coming from Jon Cooper, again, the head coach of Team Canada, somebody who knows a little bit something about winning Stanley Cups, is some huge praise, Josh. But I think it's really well-deserved, the fact that, he kind of got to spend a little bit of time with him and feel out as he's shaping up for his audition for Team Canada here. But when we think of Nick Suzuki and why this praise is so well deserved, it's like when we think of Nick Suzuki, the first thing that comes to mind is amazing 2-way player, right? A guy that's good offensively, but then plays a really strong defensive game as well, and the attention to details, and he's reliable and he stays healthy. So when we factor that in, Josh, what a strong 2-way player he is, and then we combine that with the fact that over the last quarter of last season, Nick Suzuki produced the 4th most points out of any player in the NHL. I think when we combine that, knowing what he can do offensively with what he brings defensively, he has to be very strongly in the running for a spot here in Team Canada. I think if he just continues that body of work, like how we did, just really on a heater to finish last season, he just continues that on that pace. He doesn't even need to be better than he was last year. Just really continue that pace, get that consistency. Given his defensive play, Josh, I don't see a world where he doesn't make Team Canada, given how he's getting so many brownie points for his leadership on and off the ice. We're going to get into that a little bit more in the second. I think that's also factoring into Jon Cooper's potential decision of whether he's going to include him on Team Canada or not. I'm feeling strongly about it right now, Josh.
Yeah, I agree. And the adaptability to different situations as well. He's just the type of player that works with anyone. If he needs to score goals, hey, the dude's a 30-goal scorer, right? He can do that. You need him to play make, hey, he's amazing. You need him to play a bit more defense and just play with a high hockey IQ, know where to be, what to do, and work very well with the coaching staff and your teammates. He does all that. So you're very right. I'm very optimistic. We want to hear your thoughts on this down below. Couldn't really get a more glowing review from a guy like Jon Cooper, so love to hear that. But we're going to move on to something else Nick Suzuki was involved in, I should say, is the word I was looking for here today, as Petu Info, who's tweeted out a lot of great stuff from the practice facility. They said, look, Marc Bureau, our face-off specialist, was there this morning in Brossard with a few players, including Nick Suzuki, Kirby Dach, Juraj Slafkovsky, Zach Bolduc, Oliver Kapanen, Joe Veleno, and Alex Newhook. I saw some people saying Owen Beck is crying at home right now looking at this, but, this is really cool. We got some clips of them talking, and we got a couple of face-offs here between Newhook and Suzuki to end this off, but there were also other videos online of Bolduc even winning a handful of draws against Nick Suzuki, which is cool, too. Jesse, look, I don't think this necessarily implies that, there are long-term plans for Slaf or Bolduc to end up playing center, But this is kind of the start of it, right? When you seem to be the guy, the go-to guy on your line, that if your center gets kicked out, you're coming in, which is, I imagine, what Slaf is there for, right? To step in if Suzuki gets kicked out, because Caufield wasn't taking those, those draws. Maybe the same's for Bolduc, but at the very least, man, we're seeing some interesting stuff. This wasn't an accident that you're picking those two wingers in Slaf and Bolduc to participate in this exercise.
That's true. And even though we've seen them practicing basically all summer, Josh, like, I'm still surprised to see them like full on drilling something so important to the team right now. Like, a big thing with Kent Hughes, he's saying, like, don't wait until October to work on the things you really want to improve on. The fact that they're really putting so much attention on something that's so important for this team is just showing how motivated they are. Now, the implications of us not getting a 2C for me is that Zach Bolduc can fill that role at the 2C. He can, and he can run with it. And I definitely was not surprised to see him winning a couple of draws, just given that physical nature of his game. So much of winning draws really in the NHL, for sure there's technique and strength, but a lot of it just comes down to that willpower and that dog in you. And I just see that for days in Zachary Bolduc, which is why I've really been, bullish on the point that I really think that he can hold down that position. Is that ideal? Is that the long-term solution? Maybe not in that case, but I think in a pinch, he could really serve well and really surprise a lot of people going forward. You have to feel like Kent Hughes is paying attention as well. Like, this matters when he sees, okay, we're drilling and he's actually showing success against Nick Suzuki, who's had many a draw in the NHL. Like, that matters. And that gives a little bit more kind of maybe a relief for Kent Hughes, knowing that, okay, if we don't get that 2C, we got a guy that can plug in, that can win draws, but skill-wise also fits into what we need within that top six as well. Just providing that physical part of the game. I think Zachary Bolduc just could offer so much for that top six. So again, Josh, if that's the beauty of the team right now, even if we don't get that 2C, I think we have an amazing backup plan. And I'm really curious to see how that would look like in action.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, it just gives us some flexibility. Roster flexibility is something we have talked about a lot this offseason, something I'm sure management cares about as well. And like even a guy like Slaf too, like I know some fans have mentioned it. What if, what if he's a big guy? His game could make sense at center, though it's not something he's really ever done. I don't anticipate that being a thing, but like you said, having backup plans is never a bad idea. So let us know what you make of this. Do you think this means there's a higher likelihood of Bolduc playing some center this year? I think I would give that a yes. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a guarantee, but there is some higher likelihood. We've heard a lot of smoke around that, and to see him here even winning some faceoffs, it's been pretty cool. And even Newhook too, winning a bunch of draws. I think he's going to get back to a decent faceoff percentage. I'm excited for that. But final thing here, Jesse, I mean, look, growth of the team, obviously it happens a lot in practice, happens a lot with team building, but Kent Hughes revealed a bunch of stuff in a recent interview with Eric Engels, link down below as always. And there's a few different things we want to get to. We'll talk about the trades in just a second, because he had some interesting comments on that, but I wanted to start with this. And I know, Jesse, we both really loved this quote. And Ken said, look, in my own experience as an agent, players kind of evolve out of this phase where their focus is just on their own careers, and they transition to putting their focus on the team. For us to be successful as a young team, we needed those guys to do that earlier than their peers. And we're seeing signs of that. I witnessed a lot of players holding individuals and the group accountable and expecting more from each other. And I expect they will carry forward at the start of this year. And I really, really like this idea, because these guys holding each other accountable. You mentioned earlier about Nick Suzuki being, a leader and the kind of guy that just works well with other people. This fits him very well, but clearly not just him. We're getting some behind the scenes looks through the Crave documentary, where we're going to see, I'm sure, a lot more what Kent is saying from the behind the scenes perspective. But to hear this from such a young team, to see the guys already do it, we saw how, like, when they started winning games, how the culture seemed to change a little bit. For such a young group, Jesse, I just don't think there's many other teams in the league, rarely any other teams ever, that seem to be as mature emotionally as what we're hearing here from Kent Hughes, if it all is completely true, which I imagine it is.
And that's what really makes this team so special, just to be showing such maturity at such a young age, but then with so much talent. That's why we're so excited about the future of this Montreal Canadiens, and we truly feel that something special is being built here. And again, a lot of that comes down from Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon, and then the leadership of Martin St. Louis, and then to Nick Suzuki. And when all these guys are showing up to practice early, it's really showing the success of leadership at really all levels of the organization right now, which I think is just so huge. It shows how they're buying into the vision that Kent Hughes has really laid out. But then not just that, the implementation, Martin St. Louis, but a lot of that's been given to Nick Suzuki. And I think he just got so much respect from the players last year of what he does both on the ice and off of it, and how he put that team on his back. Like, there's a way where you want to get your teammates to have your back and get respect for them. It's when you go to management and say, keep this group together. I believe in these guys. And then you go out and then you do everything to kind of, make sure that you're really standing up for your team and really back in the words that you said, which is exactly what Nick Suzuki did, finding a way to just will this team into the postseason. Again, he wasn't the only part of it, but he was the leader that really brought them there. And for having such a strong leader on this young core is just so important. So the fact that, like, this is why we're seeing what we're seeing at Brossard right now, like, it's unprecedented. Like, you almost never see this so far ahead of schedule, and they have a grueling season. Like, you almost wouldn't, like, we wouldn't feel so bad saying, okay, maybe take a little bit of time off. So just as long as you give it everything that you got during the season, right? But to see this buy-in in the offseason, knowing they have a grueling season coming in, just knows that they're buying into what they need to do of being a little bit less selfish, way ahead of schedule, and how that can really benefit the team. Because, I mean, we don't need to throw too many, shots here, Josh, but we've seen talented teams just down the 417, not far away, maybe in Ontario, some skilled teams, but it was maybe the more individualized play that was really the reason of why they could never truly get that success. Now in Montreal, not the case. We have that young core, just like how the Toronto Maple Leafs did very recently, but I think there's just so much more of a selfless nature to it, which is really going to separate us in those key moments in the playoffs. When it comes down to crunch time, you just feel, Josh, this is going to be a team where they're going to have each other's backs when it really matters the most.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And again, we saw that a bit in the past playoffs. Like, really the whole last season feels like no one was ever upset or too hyped for themselves individually. It was always such a team thing, and you're absolutely right. That sense of, like, no, this is for all of us. We're seeing it with the Florida Panthers. Like, it's probably the most clear example in the league, right? This kind of stuff is so important. But, this whole, like, best thing for the team, it doesn't just start with the players, management too, right? And I think a lot of that credit does go to Kent Hughes for not only putting together this team, but, like, instituting, I don't want to say, like, the culture is all because of Kent, but again, it kind of trickles from the top down, the kind of environment they put the players in. I wanted to just visit this quote that Kent had to say about the trades, saying, look, he would never just expect anything to happen because things don't always happen when you want them to. That alone is a great quote. I mean, like, absolutely true and applies to a lot of stuff. But he said, look, we're exploring ways to create cap flexibility. We're fine. Don't even have to trade price. If we can find a trade to move the contract that makes sense, it makes sense for another team, we'll pursue it, but we don't have to. And again, this just goes to how much they just don't want to rush into anything. Every move is smart, calculated, and best for the team. Yes, moving Carey Price's contract would have massive benefits to us, especially with the new CBA stuff coming in, but it's not an absolute necessity. He's not, basically what he's saying is, look, if there's something here that's like, we have to give up too much in a trade, not even going to really worry about it too much. We can still just put him on LTIR. Yeah, obviously, it affects cap space later, but again, this calm, cool, collected demeanor of not just Kent, but the whole organization, Jesse, like, I just love this. I love seeing this from a front office that is absolutely not just going to go out there and make a move for the sake of doing it. Everything he does, basically say, look, you're not going to rip me off. Too bad if you want to try.
And he always has that line in the sand, which is so good because really teams that he's looking to do business, they know where he stands. There's never kind of no questioning, but also his own team. They always know where Kent Hughes stands. There's no ambiguity. He makes it very clear, very fair. Kent Hughes is always motivated, but never desperate when it comes to making those deals. And you have to feel, Josh, like a lot of this is things that you have to say. Of course, you don't want to be giving up leverage in negotiations in an interview. It's not the play as a general manager. But at the same time, it's completely true. And other general managers, when they're reading the quote, they can take that at face value and completely know that that is a fact. Like, yes, they are motivated to try and trade Carey Price's contract because that can help the team in a lot of ways. But it's absolutely true that if it's going to cost too much, we really value our picks considering how we've been just turning out so many of these draft picks right now. So I think Kent Hughes is right to have a certain line where a little bit too much is too much there. I feel like Kent Hughes is going to get something done before the season begins? Yes, absolutely. But that's only going to, again, make sense if it really fits that long-term plans, the Montreal Canadiens. And that's why you mentioned, Josh, like why the Montreal Canadiens such in safe hands, just because they're really being looked after by somebody that always has that long-term vision in mind. But at the same time, now we're starting to kind of, it gets exciting because we know that the future is now and some exciting things for the Montreal Canadiens are about to happen very shortly.
Absolutely. And this is like this season, you see people who've been fans for decades saying this is the most excited they've been in a while. For me, maybe my whole life heading into a season, because it's a lot less blind hoping the players, the roster we put together is going to click.
Yeah,
it's now just like, I want to see how high that ceiling really is. I'm so excited. I know you guys are too. Let us know your thoughts on all this stuff down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. Don't forget, leave a comment on this video, like the video, and subscribe. Make sure your comment includes the word giveaway, as you can see right up there. If your comment includes that word, you will be entered for our 2-ticket giveaway. Thank you for tuning in every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.